So when I was 13, I was a very serious little person, or I was trying to be anyway. And one thing I felt especially mature about was I used to go with my friend Tim downtown to this chess club. And I was particularly into it because it was kind of formal. So you had to bring like your own competition chess clock. And as you play, you have to write down your moves in this little booklet. And when the game finishes, you can't leave the table until you've both stood up and shaken hands and left. So I know it's a story about chess, but it's not really about chess, so just be cool. It's okay. So there's a kind of ladder system at the chess club, and you're supposed to play people within a few spots of yourself. And so Tim and I basically play each other all the time because we're at like the bottom of the ladder. But we would gaze out with respect at the various other people, especially these two people who were the kind of like stars of the club. One of them is this old guy who's like the grand master of the club. He's like this older guy who would walk around and survey everything. And then there's this kid who's maybe like 15, and he's like the prodigy who everyone whispers about, and we would watch him. Oh. But one day I was standing there, and I was on my own. I guess Tim was in the bathroom. And the 15-year-old prodigy is standing next to me. And he says, all right, do you want to play? And I said, yeah. And so we start playing. And sure enough, he's killing me. He's just pulling pieces off left and right. But then suddenly I noticed that he seemed to be kind of vulnerable in one spot of the board. And I thought, oh, it's probably a trap or something. But I made my moves. And then suddenly I'd won. And I was like, wow. And I was elated. And I wanted to get up and go and tell Tim. But I look over at my partner, and he's just sitting there in silence. He's not looking at me. So he's not going to shake my hand. I can't leave the table. Minutes go by. He's just staring at the board, ashen-faced. He's looking through the moves. He's looking back at the board. I'm just sitting there. I wanted to say, it's okay. It's just a game, really. But I couldn't say that, it seemed. Finally, the older grandmaster guy, he comes around to our part of the room, and he looks at the board, and he sees what's happened. And the kid looks up at him, and he says, am I in disgrace? I was like, Jesus Christ. I thought the old guy would then say, oh, it's so cool. But he doesn't do that. He takes his question very seriously. He's just like looking at the board. He's looking through the moves. He's looking back at the board. More minutes pass. I'm still just sitting there. Finally, he says, no, you are not in disgrace. This is a very unusual mate. And so the kid looks up at him, he says, thank you, and he finally shakes my hand, and I can go. But I'm much less excited now. I go and find Tim, I say, we gotta go home. I quit the chess club. I quit chess. Now, maybe 10 or 15 years later, I was back home, Wales, just ignore that part, and I was going into this club, not a chess club, and I recognized one of the bouncers, and I said, oh, hey, Tim. And so we got chatting. He had just got some complicated piercing called a Prince Albert, which goes up through your urethra, I believe. So we talked about that. And then I pulled him to the side away from his bouncer friends, and I said, do you remember when we used to play chess? And he was like, yeah. And so I go through this story, and he remembers it in every detail, just as I did. Except at the end, he says, that's not when you quit. You quit 2 weeks later when I finally beat you. So Boulder, you live and you learn, or maybe you just live. It's hard to say. Thank you.